Microphone's on. Order Board of Zoning Appeals for November 27th, 2023. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from November 13th, 2023.
So moved to approve.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Milborn to approve the minutes as written. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Any special requests or continuances? Seeing none, we'll move on to findings of fact. BZA 2023-040, a use variance for Thomas Loudermilk for property located at 509 and 517 Pleasant Run Drive.
Chairman, in consideration of statutory criteria, I move that we adopt the written findings of fact as presented, incorporating the evidence submitted into the record as our final decision and final action for variance petition number BZA 2023-040.
Motion by Mr. Peters, second by Mr. Mull. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. BZA 2023-044, development standards variance for Baljeet Kaur for property located at 600 East Main Street.
Mr. Chairman, in consideration of statutory criteria, I move that we adopt the written findings of fact as presented, incorporating the evidence submitted into the record as our final decision and final action for variance petition number BZA 2023-044.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Milborn. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. We have no old business. Any old business from the floor? Seeing none, we'll move on to new business, starting with BZA 2023-046. The development standards variance for 532 North State Road 135. Petitioner is David Gilman on behalf of CLS Greenwood, requesting relief from 7 sections of the Unified Development Ordinance. Number 1, front elevation to allow mortar masonry to be reduced from 50% to 0% on a front facade. Number 2, front elevation to allow EIFS as a permitted exterior material. Number 3, to allow smooth face block as a permitted exterior material, including the front facade. Number 4, to allow split face block as a permitted exterior material on a front facade. Number 5, to allow the transparency on the front facade to be reduced from 30% to 0%. Number 6, to allow exterior materials other than the predominant front facade material on a side facade. And number 7, to allow multiple overhead doors on a front facade. All those wishing to speak, please stand and be sworn in by our secretary.
Do you swear to the best of your knowledge?
And the person online, are you here for this docket? That's what?
That's my replacement.
Ah, okay, very good. Are all the notices and everything in order?
Everything's in our files and in order.
Mr. Foster?
I move to administer by copy if I know the ordinance to the record.
Right. And then if you would state your name and address for the record, and also there should be a sheet up there to fill out once you get a chance to put your name and address on.
Thank you. For the record, my name is David Gilman. I am the principal for Land Development Services, representing the owner of the Jiffy Lube facility located at 532 North State Road 135. Before I begin, I have a handout I'd like to have each one of you to look at.
Please do. Oh, okay. Ms. Gilman, we'll have to check your microphone. Go back. I'm struggling to hear you a little bit.
Okay.
You. Thank you. Got that microphone, just make sure it does not appear to be on. Well, now it's good.
Tess?
There we
Okay.
go. Yeah, okay.
Yes, I'll lead into it a little bit more. Again, David Gilman, my office address is 211 South Grill Avenue, Suite H, Indianapolis 46219. The variance requests, there are 7 of them. It sounds like a lot of ask of this board, but when we get through the presentation, it really boils down to a couple items. We've been working very closely with the staff since I filed the variance. We've made a number of revisions to the facade to get more closely in line with the commercial design standards. And just to let you know, when we originally filed, we had mostly block, either smooth split space or sculpture with the EVAs around the top. Since then, we've covered three sides with the masonry finished material, with the exception of the EVA still around the top. In the south facade, is still smooth face block, and I'll explain the reason for that ask. Do I move the power slide, or just ask you guys to kind of move along with it?
You should be able to.
Try the arrow keys.
Page up, page down.
I was gonna say,
Oh,
it's
it's a
not in,
PDF, it's not PowerPoint.
it's not in PowerPoint.
Yeah.
So then it's not up in the document.
Perfect. So on this first slide, what I've done is I've kind of provided an aerial view. You'll see the pin, the red pin at the northwest corner of Fairview Road and State Road 135. That's the existing Jiffy Lube. The back side or west is the Fairview Corner Shopping Strip Center. Just on the north of this site is the new or Crew Car Wash. To the south is the Kroger Shopping Center. And then that little area right out on the intersection opposite our property is the Kroger Fuel Island for the store. On the east side, you have about 3 or 4 older single-family homes that have been over the years converted to commercial use. And then the open green space to the right of the screen is I believe the Orchard Golf Center. That sort of gets you in the right area. So this is the existing building. It was built about 1990. It has 2 bays. It has the sort of that plastic canopy around the top that has tube lights on the back side of it to illuminate in the evening. It's outdated. The owner would like to bring it up to more modern brand standards of Jiffy Lube, and at the same time, he would like to add on 1 additional bay. That additional bay is where that insert of grass is up against the building, in between the parking stalls. And that's where the building would come out. Again, the site would be compliant with landscaping and go through the planning process in connection with a variance request. So this is the east facade as you see it today. You can see the canopy has the older canopy that you've seen on some of the Jiffy Lubes from days past in the 90s and earlier. That would be replaced. That's where we want to do the EVAS application. The rest of the building below that would be all masonry type product. And then the 1, additional bay would be added closer you get to Fairview Road. So this is what that elevation is proposed to look like. We have a little bit more modernized customer service area under the Jiffy Lube sign. Then we have the existing exterior material being changed. At the top, the hatched area is the area proposed for the synthetic stucco or the EPUS. In between, the lighter color is a masonry stone that would cover the smooth face or split face block. And along the bottom, there's a wainscot of brick veneer that would go around the base of the structure. This treatment is very similar on 3 of the 4 sides. So any negative impact that you might think would be these 3 homes that have been there for quite some time, and I think converted into businesses. That's our adjoining use. And the reason I'm bringing this up is part of my findings is whether or not I would have a negative impact on the value of adjacent properties. And I don't feel that providing us relief on 1 item of material would have a negative impact on those uses across the street in that direction. So this is the west facade. This is the backside faces as you enter Fairview Corner, which takes you all the way, if you go straight, it would take you right into LA Fitness. Or you can go right to the left of the picture, you see where the cars are exiting from the Crew Car Wash. If you notice in the top of the canopy, it's already starting to break away and it needs repaired. And again, this is old, it's outdated, and it's high maintenance. It's got tube lights behind it. It's made of plastic and aluminum. And it's just something that the owner would like to get rid of and replace with a more modern material. So this is what the west facade will eventually look like. It's very much like the east facade, but because we don't have the customer service entrance area where we have more transparency or more glass, this side actually meets the requirements of your masonry materials, with the exception that all the way around the building on all four sides, we're proposing the EVIS at the top. This is the site that we're asking that the board give us some consideration on. This is the south facade. And on this facade, we would like you to grant us an approval to stay with all smooth face block. And the reason we would like you to do that is there's what it would look like. Even the EVIS would be removed. It's because Jiffy Lube in central Indiana, they have sort of a thing that they're doing to put murals on one of their facades. And this is the Jiffy Lube that is on US 31 South, and it's just across from Greenwood town limits, city limits, before you get into Whiteland on the east side of US 135 or US 31. So we would also like to be able to do a mural on that south facade. And the question that came up whenever I looked at this and took the pictures, why, to me, it looks like a gummy bear caricature. Okay, so here's how that plays out. I received this today because I asked the question, why a gummy bear? Over 100 artists have already applied to do the mural on our building on State Road 135. They do this in conjunction with the Art Council of Indianapolis. The artist is paid to do the project. The mural must be approved by Jiffy Lube and the Art Council. There's only one rule. It cannot be automotive related. The artist will work with the contractor, in this case Greenwood SCS, and would have the art in the building completed at the same time. Currently, Jiffy Lube has over 30 murals on buildings today. And if you wanted to look at other murals on other buildings, you can go online to Making Mural Project with Jiffy Lube. So the impact of granting us a variance to have smooth block on 100% of one facade facing the street, we think we've mitigated that ask by allowing us to paint a mural on there. And opposite that is the Kroger Fuel Island, which we think, again, would have minimal impact or no impact on the value of that adjacent property. So what I'm trying to demonstrate in this instance is what hardship do we have on this site that is different than other properties that may come in and ask for the very same thing. The property has three frontages. It's got frontage on 135, frontage on Fairview Road, then it's got the private drive going to LA Fitness and Fairview Corner on the west. So 3 out of 4 sides of this building must meet the requirements for front facades. And as you all know, front facades are the ones that get the most stringent reviews and have the most limited use of alternative materials. Now, when I looked in the early material list, I saw stucco was permitted. My interpretation is EPIS is a synthetic stucco as opposed to a cement stucco. But That's not, I don't think the intent. I think the intent, when I read through all the other materials, it's masonry and mortar. And if you get a stucco with masonry, the application, and that's how it's made, then that also gets treated as a masonry product. So I understand that. What we're asking is that you give us consideration on that ephes around the perimeter as a stucco alternative product. And we are asking for the minimum, just the top, not the entire building, not a substantial or predominant use of that material, but just enough to get around where that older coping is, so we can do something that's more modern, gives the artist or the designer more flexibility, because ephes, you can have a lot of different textures to it, and it'll blend in with a stone tile and a brick veneer. So we want to mitigate the variance ask by painting the mural on the south facade, as I mentioned. The variance for the east facade facing 135, we need 50%, we're at 49.4. It's a minimal ask, but our designer has squeezed every corner that he can to make it fit, to make all three sides look the same with materials without having one look more than the others, except for that south facade with the mural. We did work with Kevin and the staff to minimize all of our variance requests from the very beginning. We feel that it was a good faith effort on the owner's part, the architect's part, and our contractor to work his budget and get that budget improved and upgraded to absorb some of the additional costs. Again, the use of ephes is applied just to the top end of the building to replace the metal fabricated canopy. We think it'll add some more flexibility to facade materials. And the problem I've always seen with ephes and why people frown on using it is when you use it at a lower level, it gets banged up, it gets moisture, and it does have a tendency to be unsightly. When it's up high, it's not subject to lawnmowers or weed whackers or moisture or vehicles. And so it's really damage-free, maintenance-free, and it's super, super energy efficient as opposed to cement stucco. It's easier to apply, and we would ask that the board give us considerations for those reasons. We do think this site has met the requirements for the hardship. We do have 3 frontages. I doubt if you're gonna find very many properties that come in and ask for variances that have 3 frontages, that basically the entire building needs to meet the stringent requirement for a front facade. The other thing is the original footprint's only 1,550 square feet. So the 20% really hurts the small building upgrades and renovations as opposed to a larger building or something from the ground up. 20% of 1,500 doesn't allow a small business owner to expand very much, and it's very easy to go over that 20% threshold. We're adding 1 bay, and we're at 55% increase. So the building is really, really small. We noticed that the staff is recommending approval on 3 of our variances, number 5, 6, and 7, or 6, 7, and 8, which is the overhead doors, some of the transparency. We appreciate that. They do recommend, if you do grant approval for any or all the variances, that they want the 3 conditions added as part of that grant, and we're in agreement to those. The other thing we would add, should the board find it important, is we would give you a deadline of when that mural would be painted. And I put in there June 30th of 2024. That's when we're anticipating the building to be done. If you want, we could also say within 30 days of a final inspection of the building or something to tie it, because obviously the building has to be complete before the mural can be painted. But they've given me a comfort zone that should the variance get approved tonight, they would be able to meet that June 30th deadline. We ask that you take our findings of fact, if we submitted them, incorporate them as part of our submittal, as well as the staff conditions and condition number 4 on the mural, should you find that important. And with that, I'll conclude my presentation and open it up for questions that board members or members of the audience or staff would have of me.
Before we move on, Mr. Foster, since a request number 7 findings facts be incorporated to, should we still have him give his answers to those?
Yeah,
Into the
because,
record?
yeah, to read it into the record.
Do you have your answers to the statement of reasons, to the your answers to the findings of fact?
I do in my submittal, yeah.
We need to speak them into the record if you would. And I know you've answered some of this already, but for the purpose of having it on the record, let's go through it.
So you want me to read it?
Yeah, I'll start you off, and if you would just read your response and we can go from there. Once you,
I think it's the same for
Same
seven.
for all seven.
it's the same, and yes, and to clarify, your answers apply to all 7 variances. Is that correct? You had one answer that applied to all 7.
Okay.
All right, so number 1, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because
So for the record, the expansion and the renovation of the project will be designed to meet Indiana Building Code. The site will be served with all public utilities. The site has adequate access to a public street and drainage system. The use of the building will not change and will continue to serve the needs of the Greenwood community.
Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because
The adjacent buildings on all sides do not meet many of the commercial design standards. The expansion and renovation of the Jiffy Lube will have a positive impact on adjacent properties and will promote future investment in the older commercial structures in the immediate area.
Number 3, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because
The subject site is small and burdened by having 3 street frontages. This unique situation makes the front and transparency standards difficult or impossible to meet for this type of business. Hardships include no block material on any facade, no overhead doors, 30% required transparency on all 3 sides. In addition, the proposed materials include a EPIS application, which is considered by the industry as synthetic stucco. However, it is not listed as an acceptable material. The applicant has made adjustments to add awnings, to articulation and transparency adjustments to the west facade in order to minimize the variance request within this application.
okay, and then number 4, the structure is not regulated under Indiana Code 8-21-10-3 for hazard air navigation. Okay, anything else to add before I ask staff?
Fine, thank you.
I don't believe anyone else was here to speak for this, but before I go on, anyone? All right. Staff comments.
Yes, so I'll just start by saying that they have come, and I've worked with David quite a bit on this, but it's come a long way since the beginning. And it's definitely, I think what they have proposed now is a nice looking building. As he mentioned, we recommended approval of the variances for transparency, the side exterior materials and the overhead doors. I do want to clarify, there will not be any split face block, correct? It's all covered.
Yes, all the block will be covered on 3 facades, just smooth face on the south covered with the mural.
So originally they did ask for a variance for split face concrete block. We can skip that or.
So that was number 4.
Yes.
So number 4 is no longer applicable.
And as far as the remaining 3, the EPIS, I know we have been unfavorable. In other words, this is when that's been proposed. Just our basic staff stance on that. The smooth face concrete block we're generally opposed to, but I do like the mural. I think that adds something different than what normally is out there. So with that and the ordered masonry 50%, that kind of gets, on the one side, it's basically, it's just under 50%. I think that's fine. As I said, it's even, the thing is, it's even all the way around with the stone and the brick and the features shown on there. Just the transparency, the windows and doors on one side kind of throw the percentages off a little bit. But overall, I like what they are proposing.
Very good. Mr. Nelson?
Yeah, nothing really more to add. I think it's a very nice presentation we had as well. I will say some of these plans we're still developing as we were pursuing the variances, which is why we have the one variance request being removed. As far as, you know, us trying to find a hardship for some of these, that's why we're unfavorable. But I do agree with Kevin that we have a building that looks very nice. And I think our petitioner did point out that 20% does affect the smaller buildings more than it might affect a larger warehouse. It's a lot harder for a large building to get 20% to trigger the full compliance than it is a small building.
All right, I will close the public hearing. Mr. Ball?
Okay.
Mr. Milboard? Mr. King?
What is the CFIS? I just want to understand that. Like, what is it that we're worried about? I mean, as a material, yeah, I guess, whoever can answer that. I mean, just so I understand why we don't necessarily want it.
From staff's, what we look at is it's not a permitted material. I wasn't here when that was set forth. I don't know if that was intentionally left out or CFIS has been around for.
So is it something like you apply to the bill, like help me understand? I don't even understand what it necessarily is.
I can explain a little bit.
Yeah.
So this became popular in about 1980 because it was very energy efficient. And it would breathe a little bit, and it was a pretty good material that you could have a lot of creativity with. Like this wood railing that you're all behind, that all could be made of ephes and look exactly like that. You wouldn't know until you went out and touched it. So what it is, it's about 1 inch to 4 inches of foam rubber, hard foam rubber. Then they do an application that's like a mesh screen, and they put some synthetic epoxy on it that could be any color you want. Then they put a water vapor film behind it. And so you have this block of foam that you could probably shoot an arrow through, but it's really very durable. And you just put it up, either you put it up with adhesive glue, you put it up with mortar, or you can do a combination of both and tie it in with clips. And once it's up, it's up. And it's kind of easy to replace should it get damaged or discolors. But it was designed to kind of be an alternative to regular stucco, which is made out of cement, which doesn't really perform well here when we have 4 hard seasons. Has a tendency to crack, a lot of maintenance, it fades. EIFS, synthetic EIFS, was sort of a engineered stucco that sort of took every poor quality of cement EIFS and made it better. And the only downside is synthetic EIFS probably isn't going to last as long as cement stucco would on a building, because sometimes they can last 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the pros and cons in 60 seconds.
Okay, I was just trying to understand just what it really is. Other than that, I think they were pretty straightforward.
Ms. Peters?
I just have one question. I'm trying to understand. Based on what you described, then it's a lightweight enough material for an upper portion of a building. It would be good because it's not gonna be so heavy it's gonna fall.
Oh, yeah. Now you have to build a frame to put it on. And it can either be metal or wood
Yeah.
or whatever,
Then
but yeah, it's not gonna fall, but it certainly is lightweight. And because it's thick styrofoam, it's very, very energy efficient. No
Yeah, sounds
cold
like,
air or hot air gets out or vice versa.
I'm just trying to understand in my mind. To me, it sounds reasonable because you wouldn't want something heavy up there that's gonna,
Do you know where the Popeyes chicken is right
Yes.
now?
yes.
I think that's all EIFS. I'm pretty sure are you familiar with that? It looks like it's EIFS.
Not sure, there's quite a few buildings around here that use that.
We've had it.
And
Well, I guess as an example, the other Jiffy Lube you mentioned in New White, or Whiteland, it hasn't, right? 'Cause I'm from.
No, ironically, because right across the line, it's in Whiteland, that's 100% block, sculptured block, smooth face block, and then cultured stone around the base. So they have that 100% block building painted with different types of block to give it its
To get the
texture.
impression.
I don't really have any questions. I think the criteria has been addressed. The three front facades as well as the smaller building. I think it's been stated, so. I will take a motion to admit all the evidence in the record.
Chairman, I move that we admit all the evidence presented in regard to this matter, including the notices, receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application and attachments, petitioner's detailed statement of reasons, the staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of the Unified Development Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan, testimony of the petitioner, city planning staff, and any remonstrators, and all other exhibits presented, be they oral or written, for consideration by this board in regard to this petition, and to include the testimony of those present this evening.
Motion by Mr. Peters, second by Mr. Mole. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. I'll take a motion on request number 1 to allow mortar masonry to be reduced 50% to 15% as it is on the ballot, or 40, it's 49.4 right now. What is the actual request for number 1? Because the ballot is different, I believe.
Yeah, that's one of those things that was being updated as things were being written out. It's 0% on the south side and 49.4% on the east side.
So how should the ballot read is the question? Because the ballot is saying from 50 to 15.
I think you're gonna have to say 0% on the south side and 49.4% on the east side facade.
West and south, not.
That is not
an issue.
addressed in number 1.
That's right.
Okay, so I'll take a motion to allow mortar masonry to be reduced from 50% to 0% on the south facade and 50% to 49.4% on the east facade.
I move that we approve the request with 3 conditions listed in the staff report.
And those are, for the record.
Okay. 1, the final plans shall substantially conform to the site plan depicted in Exhibit C and building elevations depicted in Exhibit D, including proposed material percentages in Exhibit D. 2, if the board does approve variance number 1, mortar and masonry reduction in east facade shall be limited to 49% mortared masonry, and the south facade shall be allowed 0% mortared masonry, provided a mural is painted on the south facade. 3, if the board does approve variance number 3, allow, I guess that really wouldn't apply. So that's the 2, conditions 1 and 2.
A motion to approve with conditions 1 and 2 on the staff report by Mr. King, second by Mr. Mole. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Motion on number 2 to allow ethos as a permitted exterior material.
Chairman, I move we approve variance number 2. No conditions, I guess.
I don't know that they.
Yeah, this is for 1.
Just number 1 would apply to this. So no conditions on this one?
Don't see any conditions on there, so no.
A motion to approve number 2 without any conditions by Mr. King, or by Mr. Mole, second by Mr. King. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Motion for number 3, which is to allow smooth face block as a permitted exterior material, including the front facade.
I move that we approve the request with condition number 3 in the staff report. If the board does approve variance number 3 to allow smooth faced concrete block, it shall apply only to the south facade of which a mural shall be painted.
Motion by Mr. King with condition number 3, second by Mr. Moll to approve. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Number 4 is no longer applicable. Number 5, which is to allow transparency on the front facade to be reduced from 30% to 0%.
Chairman, I move we approve that request. No conditions.
Motion to approve with no conditions, second by Mr. King. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Number 6, to allow exterior materials other than the predominant front facade on a side facade.
I move that we approve this with no conditions.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Moll. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. And number 7, to allow multiple overhead doors on a front facade.
Chairman, I move we approve. All the request, no conditions.
Motion by Mr. Moll, second by Mr. Milborn. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion also carries 5-0. For all ballots. Motion to direct the Corporations Council to draft the findings of fact.
Chairman, have considered statutory criteria, move that we direct the Corporations Council Office to draft written findings of fact regarding our decision on the various petition or request presented in various petition number BCA 2023-047. Said findings specifically incorporate the staff report and the evidence submitted into the record for consideration and adoption by the Board of Zoning Appeals as our final decision and final action regarding this petition in our next meeting.
Motion by Mr. Moll, second by Mr. King. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. You are good to proceed working with staff. We will take final action at our next meeting, which will be in 2 weeks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate the details. All right. Next up is BZA 2023-047. This is a development standards variance for 1464 West Stones Crossing. Petitioner is Brent Roberts on behalf of Fanaman Design, requesting relief from six sections of the Unified Development Ordinance. Number 1, to allow aluminum as a permitted column material for lot number 1. Number 2, to allow wood as a permitted column material for lot number 2. Number 3, to allow exterior materials other than the predominant front facade material on a side facade for lot 1. Number 4, to allow exterior materials other than the predominant front facade material on a side facade for lot 2. Number 5, to allow exterior materials other than the predominant front facade material on a side facade for lot 3. And number 6, to allow mechanical equipment to be screened by landscaping for lot number 3. All those wishing to speak to this docket, please stand and be sworn in by our secretary.
You swear to this perjury, testimony is true to the best of your knowledge. Thank you.
Are all notices in order?
Notices are in order and in our file, and we did have someone else show up online, I'm not sure.
Oh, here's pointing it out. Is that Mr. Schwartz? Is that? Can't see it.
Yeah.
Mr. Schwartz, are you here for this petition? Okay.
But yes, everything's in our file and in order.
Okay. Mr. Foster?
Move to admit a certified copy of the Unified Development Ordinance to the record.
Name and address for the record.
My name is Brent Roberts. Our office is at 934 Fort Wayne Avenue, Indianapolis.
Okay, and then also be sure to fill that out if you would. And I should ask, are you speaking for or in opposition to the petition?
Opposition.
Okay. So just so everyone's aware, we have 15 minutes for you to present, sir. They'll have 15 minutes to remonstrate, you'll have 5 minutes to rebut, 5 minutes to rebut. And then
I can probably make it just a little bit quicker by kind of grouping them together because it's similar arguments for several of the variances. So there are 3 buildings on this property. They are not separately addressed yet. And on Stone Creek, as you see here, right up front here in this area. I believe you can see that, right? Yep. You see the 3 columns there. Those are only intended to hold up the canopy and are not integral to the building itself. And so we are asking for those to be, they'll probably be wood clad around a steel column. You would not see the steel column, but that's where we were asking for it not to be brick because we're trying to keep those minimal. Then on lot 2 is Brewburger. You can see in this elevation, this area is what is didn't work as well that time. That's what is facing the street that would be to the west. And this is a pergola. Again, it's not integral to the building itself. It's just merely to provide covering for patio seating. And these aluminum poles will eventually get incorporated a vinyl drop so that it will still be see-through, but it would save from cold or windy weather. And the heaters inside of the pergola then would keep that as conditioned space to extend the life of the patio through the year. Variances 3 through 5 are for the side elevation. On this particular one, we have 2 side elevations because there's 2 fronts. And so it's mainly the side you're seeing here that uses a lot of extra materials, not the single material that's requested in the UDO. But similarly, on Stone Creek, every side of that building is different, using a different combination of materials. I don't think I can get back because it's you can see here with the 2 different views shown there and the other 2 views shown there. It's really kind of a different look on all 4 sides, but again, using the same variation of materials. And then on the retail building, well, on the broom we've already seen. The bottom elevation here is the one that would face Stones Crossing. On the retail center, it would be the side elevation that you're looking at here. It's not technically this one, but it's a mirror image on the far side. It's basically designed the same way, except that the far side would not have the doors that you're seeing in this area. That will also be the area that we'll be talking about the screen on the far side, because that's where the meters will be going. But here, this is a side elevation, as is the opposite end. And as you can see, we're still incorporating similar materials that we used on the other sides. So then the final is the landscape screening. And so as I had mentioned, you can see in their packets as well. So the landscape screening will be in this area. The landscape screening is in this area on the far east side of the retail building. There will be be a bank of gas and electric meters. The landscape and civil engineer were kind of showing a very large area. It's not gonna be that big. Because they'll probably be in a line kind of along the building. And so really it'll, the landscaping can be held tighter to the building. We just need to provide the clearance for people to access those meters. That all, I think,
Before we go to questions from the board, let's go through the statutory criteria and get that on the record. I think we can try to consolidate this a little bit. We'll answer number 1 and number 2, and then I believe your answers for 3 to 5 will be identical. And then we'll answer number 6 for that work. So number 1, for variance number 1, to allow wood as a permitted column material, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because
petitioner's proposed design for the entry canopy columns is a wood finish that allows higher visibility of the entry area and is a better contrast to the adjacent masonry.
Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because
Petitioner's proposed design for the entry columns will not affect the use or value of areas adjacent to the property. The proposed design places an emphasis on the building with minimal columns used to support the entry canopy.
And number 3, the strict application of the terms of zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because
If applied to the entry canopy columns, the design standard would be an unnecessary hardship since the wood finish is part of the brand identity, and the thicker columns would reduce the visibility to and from the entry.
Okay, and then number 4, the structure is not regulated under Indiana Code 8-21-10-3. For hazard air navigation, I'm going to go ahead and state that that will apply to all 6 of the requests. Number 2, to allow aluminum as a permitted column material for lot number 2, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because
Petitioner's proposed design for the pergola is a minimal bronze finish that allows higher visibility for customers on the patio and higher visibility for passerby to see into the patio area.
Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property, including the variance, will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because
The proposed design for the pergola will not affect the use or value of the areas adjacent to the property. The proposed design places an emphasis on the building with minimal columns used on the pergola.
Number 3, the strict application of the terms of zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because
If applied to the pergola columns, the design standard would be an unnecessary hardship since it would directly impact the space available for seating, would reduce the visibility to and from the patio, and would also inhibit the ability to incorporate vinyl drops during inclement weather.
okay, these answers will apply to variance requests 3, 4, and 5. Number 1, which is to allow exterior materials other than predominant front facade material on a side facade for all 3 lots.
I wrote a little more on the Stone Creek, and so I'm going to kind of skip over that and say the design standard should be applied as a minimum level of design expectation and should not prevent designs that incorporate a mix of materials. The proposed building would have the same design sensitivity on the side elevation as it does on the front elevation, and would use the same materials in different ways. That would be true for all 3.
Okay, and that is for the approval will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community.
The proposed design is a more attractive solution when viewed from adjacent properties, since the side elevations are treated with the same design sensitivity as the front elevation.
Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property, including the variance, will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because
The design standard should be applied as a minimum level of expectation, should not prevent designs that incorporate mixed materials, as long as a higher design sensitivity is being proposed.
Sorry, I think I confused you. So this is for number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because well, for So your answer was that you talked about the proposed design being a more attractive solution with view from the adjacent property,
Sorry, I thought I heard the,
and I may have.
oh, right, proposed design is a more attractive solution when viewed from an adjacent property, since the site elevations are treated with the same design sensitivity.
Okay, and then number 3, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because.
Right. The standard should be applied as a minimum level of expectation, should not prevent designs that incorporate a mix of materials as long as a higher design sensitivity is being proposed.
Okay. And then for request number 6, to allow mechanical equipment to be screened by landscaping. Number 1, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because.
The proposed design for landscape screening is a more attractive design than screening the equipment in only one material. The electric and glass meters take up a significant portion of the east elevation, so screening would become a dominant element of the elevation.
Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property, including the variance, will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because.
The proposed design is a more attractive solution when viewed from the public way. There's already a significant amount of landscaping being planned for that property at that corner, as you can see in the drawing here.
And then number 3, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because.
The strict application of the requirement required a large expanse of masonry due to the multi-tenant bank of electrical and gas meters. A landscape screen would achieve the same effect without creating a monotonous masonry wall that is visible from westbound traffic lanes.
Anything else to add before I give the demonstrators a chance?
No, we do not.
Okay, and you did fill out your name and address on that, or if you would take that and do that while I have sir come on up. And your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Shannon Thompson, 1445 West Stones Crossing Road.
All right, Mr. Thompson, tell us your concerns.
Okay. My wife and I, we came tonight just to get clarification on what's being done. When I moved into the neighborhood, one of the key things about purchasing there was the curb appeal for that Stones Crossing corridor. And when I came to the first meeting for this project last year, and it passed by a very narrow vote, had some concerns. A couple of months ago, when the trees were taken down off of the property, there were still some trees left along Stones Crossing Road and on the east side. When I came came home the next day, when I first saw that, I thought, well, maybe this won't look too bad. It will still keep some of the aesthetics we have in the community. When I came home the next day, they were all gone. So our concern is the curb of appeal for the community. What we've got, we're losing that. I think had some of my questions answered, the gentleman speaking, concerned about mostly lot number 3. When I received the packet, it didn't show anything about any landscaping, which was a big concern of ours. What is the south side or the back? It just talks about the front and the sides. To me, a building has a front, 2 sides, and a back. So I assume you're considering the back as a side, which is going to be different. According to what I see here, the front, the back side, the south side of the building will look similar to the north or the front of the building, but without any doors. If my interpretation's right. What I'm concerned about is what's it going to look like as a person travels, east and west on Stones Crossing Road, or I look at it from my driveway. anymore, it seems like, I think some issues that haven't been addressed are how are you gonna get trash out of these different businesses or these restaurants? Where are the dumpsters going to be? Where are the grease dumpsters going to be? You pass so many restaurants or other businesses, you see these dumpsters stuck up against the back of the building, and it's very unsightly. I think you answered my questions about the utilities, the gas and the electric meters all being on the east side of number 3 and incorporating landscaping to take care of that, to keep it out of view for the westbound traffic, if I remember right. So I guess my concerns is, what kind of landscaping is going to be on the south side of the building? What's going to be done about the trash removal, the waste, cooking oil, those sort of things, and because I don't want something placed there that's, this could either increase my property value or it could really hurt it. So those are my concerns.
Appreciate that. So unfortunately for this board, some of that stuff is out of our scope tonight. It will go through a whole planning design that will go through landscaping and all the requirements that the staff and planning commission will work with. All we are tasked with or asked to do is the specific request here tonight regarding the columns and the material, and then the landscaping specific to the blocking the meters, because they are wanting to use landscaping as opposed to a fencing or something similar to the building material. So unfortunately, we may not be able to answer all your questions when it comes to what they're going to do with all of that. That is out of our scope.
I understand that, and thank you for letting my concerns be known.
Absolutely appreciate it.
Really quick, just from staff aside, this is not a demonstration or a for or against, but if you wouldn't mind leaving your email address with your name and your address, I will email you the landscape plan for this site. They are providing a good number of shrubs and trees.
Mhm.
I can send you the landscape plan for the site. And also, we can find other information, such as where the dumpsters are located, and those are also screened. But so if you wouldn't mind, just on that sign-in sheet, if you have an email address, I can send you over some of these plans.
That would be wonderful.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Thank you, Mr. Thompson.
Well, like, no, you're not asking for me to necessarily rebut what he's asking for. And unfortunately, we do not have the landscape plan in here. But I did want to show in the upper corner of the parking, not the retaining pond, but just below that, in the upper right corner, that's the trash. And that will be for all 3 locations. It's a pretty sizable trash enclosure because it will have 3 dumpsters in it, and we'll also have some storage area for empty kegs and things like that happens with restaurants. And so we're making sure that it's going to be sizable, that it will include everything, and it won't be visible, right? It will be masonry. But I did also want to point out for what I do have the landscaping plan of is this same view, and you can see there's some fairly extensive landscaping just in this one corner, and that is true for the entire property. So generally, the north border of the property and the east border of the property have a pretty thick grove of trees that's been planted through the process. Along Stones Crossing, it's more this kind of single row of trees with lower plantings up against the building. And then there were also some considerations made for lighting along the public way, and I think we were adding a traffic light or pedestrian crossing maybe across the street. But yeah, that was all covered in the civil engineer working with the city. And I believe that they approved that kind of design process and they're all good to go. It's squared away on that.
I appreciate that. Anything else to add?
No, not unless you have questions for me. I have to answer.
We'll get there. I'm gonna let staff add their comments.
As long as the rebuttal is done, I would like to say he is correct that plans have been approved, the site plan, so I believe they're good to start moving dirt. That is not necessarily the building permit with these elevations that we're reviewing. Those would be a part of that building permits approval. And I do actually have the landscape sheet printed off, so if you stay afterwards, I'll run upstairs and I'll grab that sheet for you. Staff is favorable of all of these variances. With that, we do have two conditions. The second condition is applicable to variance number 6, which is the mechanical screening. That is incorporating the landscape plan. For variances 1 through 5, that would be condition number 1 that would be applicable. 1 and 2, we felt met the spirit of the Unified Development Standards. Really what we're looking at is the architecture, appearance. We want good quality products. Our UDO wants to hold people to that standard. And I think that this product that we have before us does meet that standard of quality that we're looking for in Greenwood. And then number 3 through 5, you are familiar with this variance. Really seems to penalize people that are going above and beyond with unique architecturally significant designs. I think that looks much better, the renderings we saw, than a solid wall of one material. So that's all I have.
Okay. Claudia, anything to add? All right, I'll close the public hearing. Mr. Mole?
I'm good.
Mr. Milborn? Mr. King? Ms. Peters?
No questions.
I have none either, and I think this is fairly straightforward in the request and reasons for it, so. With that, I will take a motion to admit all the evidence into the record.
Chairman, I move that we admit all the evidence presented in regard to this matter, including the notices, receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application and attachments, petitioner's detailed statement of reasons, the staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of the Unified Development Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan, testimony of the petitioner, city planning staff, and any remonstrators, and all other exhibits presented, be they oral or written, for consideration by this board in regard to this petition, and to include the testimony of those present this evening.
Motion by Mr. Peters, second by Mr. King. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. A motion on request number 1 to allow wood as a permitted column material.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the request with only one condition. That's condition number 1 in the staff report, which is the final plans shall substantially conform to the site plan depicted in Exhibit C and building elevations depicted in Exhibit D.
Motion to approve with the first condition, second by Mr. Mole. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Number 2, to allow aluminum as permitted column material.
Chairman, I move that we request number 2 with the one condition, the final plans will conform to the site plans.
I want to make sure I heard you right. You said you want to request number 2. You
Or
moved to approve
variance-
number 2.
approve number 2, sorry.
May have been just the way I heard it. I didn't know if anyone else caught it. Okay.
Approve the request
So we
number
have a
2.
motion to approve with the same condition, number 1 on staff report, second by Mr. Milborn. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Number 3, to allow exterior materials other than a predominant front facade material on a side facade for lot number 1.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the request with the same condition.
Motion to approve by Mr. King, second second by Mr. Mole. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0 with the one condition. Number 4, to allow exterior materials other than the predominant front facade material on a side facade for lot 2.
I move that we approve the request with the same condition.
Motion to approve the same condition, second by Mr. Mole. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Number 5, to allow exterior materials other than the predominant front facade material on a side facade for lot 3.
Move we request, I move, I motion to approve, that's number 5. With the staff conditions.
Number 1.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion to approve with condition number 1 on the staff report, second by Mr. King. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. And number 6, to allow mechanical equipment to be screened by landscaping.
I move that we approve the request with only condition number 2 on the staff report, which is proposed landscape screening shall substantially conform to exhibit G as in George.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Mole. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Motion to direct the Corporation's Council to draft written findings of fact.
Chairman, having considered the statutory criteria, I move that we direct the Corporation Counsel's Office to draft written findings of fact regarding our decision on the variance request presented in variance petition number BZA 2023-047. Said findings to specifically incorporate the staff report and the evidence submitted into the record for consideration and adoption by the Board of Zoning Appeals as our final decision and final action regarding this petition at our next meeting.
Motion by Mr. Peters, second by Mr. King. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. You're good to move forward with staff as well. We'll take final action in a couple weeks. Mr. Thompson, Mr. Nelson will get you some of the information that you were asking about that we were unable to address tonight.
Thank you very much.
All right, any new business from the floor? Seeing none, any announcements?
Just that Drew is coming to a close on BZA as our attorney, so just want to give him a special thank you and shout out for being with us this year. And that's
This is your
Is that
last
your
one?
last one?
That's gonna be it. Maybe, I have a chance of that.
It's a maybe, so.
Good run.
Yeah.
All right, well, if it is, thank you for
Thank you.
everything you've done for us. Appreciate all the help.
I will not be here next BZA meeting.
Do we, I saying yes, do we have a-
Yeah, I believe we had.
We have an
So
agenda.
yeah, we do have an agenda for December 11th. That will be, is it just one of you who's absent?
Yeah, I got work.
So we should be able to go forward. We've had 4 members before. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, so.
We know nothing about only having 4 members. All right,
And
well,
how many do we have?
we'll have 4.
No,
No. how many?
petitions.
Oh, how many on the
Yeah.
agenda?
Full 3.
I think it's 3 petitions.
If I recall, we had full agendas going forward. So. All right, I will motion to adjourn. We are adjourned.